yesterday, Joe Rogan, who's a friend of mine, right? Full disclosure, I'm friends with Joe. I think Joe's a good dude. We disagree on a wide variety of topics. But what's fun about Joe is that Joe is really open-minded. He's willing to discuss with anybody. Like, he'll have anybody on his show. He'll have tons of people from a variety of different viewpoints. He's had me. He's had Bernie Sanders. Right? He's had Barry Weiss, and he's had people who I think are wildly not Barry Weiss. Right? I mean, he's had people from virtually every area of life. Well, Joe Rogan was asked by Barry Weiss on his show who he would be likely to vote for in the California primaries, and here was Joe Rogan's answer.
I think I'll probably vote for Bernie. Him as a human being, when I was hanging out with him, and I believe in him. I like him a lot. What Bernie stands for is a guy who, well, look, you could dig up dirt on every single human being that's ever existed if you catch them in their worst moment, and you magnify those moments, and you cut out everything else, and you only display those worst moments. That said, you can't find very many with Bernie. He's been insanely consistent his entire life.
Okay, so Rogan is saying what really is Bernie's appeal, which is that Bernie has been this old commie for his entire life. Now, I don't find that appealing, right? I think that his ideas have been bad since basically he emerged from his mother's womb at age 82. But like he's like the high school principal in Back to the Future. The man never had hair, right? I mean, that's he was always like this. But that is his appeal, right? The appeal of Bernie is the authenticity. It's the reason why people have not turned to Elizabeth Warren. They feel she is inauthentic. People who like Bernie believe that he is authentic, and so they're like, okay, at least he believes what he believes, and that goes a long way with Joe. Now, again, I disagree with Joe on this. I think Bernie Sanders is a trash heap. I think he's awful. I think he associates with the worst people. I think that he champions the worst people. But what's hilarious is the left, which has no problem whatsoever with Bernie Sanders hanging out with Linda Sarsour, no problem with him being endorsed by Sean King, no problem with Bernie Sanders touting the endorsements of some of the most radical people in American life. Joe Rogan said that, right? He said, I'd be likely to vote for Bernie Sanders. And Bernie Sanders had the temerity to put that up on his Twitter page. And now, that is trending #1 on Twitter. #1. Not because Rogan said that he'd be likely to vote for Sanders. That's not actually a huge surprise, right? Joe is an out-of-the-box dude. It really is not super shocking. And authenticity matters an awful lot to Joe. The reason people are mad is because Joe Rogan has had people like me on his show. And the fact that Joe Rogan has had people like me on his show means that Joe Rogan is a very bad man who's very bad and very bad. And that means that Bernie Sanders touting his endorsement is really awful. Because Joe Rogan believes things like sometimes he says that men are men and women are women, and that men should not fight women in MMA. That's a thing he has said, and that is quite terrible. And also, Joe Rogan is a comedian, which means he has said very politically correct and offensive things in the past. And that is very bad. And so now, Bernie Sanders is being attacked by the woke left for the sin of touting the fact that the most popular podcaster in America, right? I mean, Joe is huge. That Joe came out and said that he would vote for Bernie in a primary or is likely to vote in a primary. The left is so self-defeating, and Bernie deserves every bit of this, of course, because Bernie has courted this. Right? For all the talk about Bernie's authenticity, here's where Joe, I think, is wrong. Bernie is authentic until the point where he is challenged, at which point he backs down like a little pansy. Right? He is absolutely authentic until the point where he's attacked on it, and then he runs screaming from the room. To give an example, he was endorsed by Cenk Uygur. So Cenk and I have our disagreements, to put it mildly. You can find a debate with me and Cenk online. It's a pretty fun debate. Cenk is running for Congress out here in California. He also has a big show called The Young Turks, which is weird since for a long time he didn't believe in the Armenian genocide. But in any case, Cenk has a long history of saying pretty wild things. Okay, but Cenk was always a Sanders supporter, right? He always supported Sanders, right? He's always supported him. And so Cenk endorsed Sanders. Sanders said thank you. And then people started filling up Sanders' feed with all the things that Cenk has said over the years. And Sanders basically withdrew his endorsement of the endorsement. He basically disassociated from Cenk, which is the most gutless move in the entire world. I mean, super duper gutless. It's not like Cenk was hiding the ball. Cenk has been Cenk forever. Yeah, the same thing with Rogan. I would not be surprised if Bernie Sanders backs off of this. I would not be surprised if Bernie Sanders pulls down the tweet and says, while I'm grateful for Joe Rogan's support, I don't agree with everything that Joe Rogan says, blah, 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 blah. That would not be surprising to me at all. This is, and he deserves that. I mean, that's what he has facilitated the rise of this woke left. He has. He didn't have to. He could have been the guy standing up to it, but he has facilitated that rise. He has catered to that rise, and now he's feeling the blowback from it. So fine. But it is amazing that the world the left wants to create. It really is an incredible world. I mean, Rogan has had on a variety of Democratic candidates, and many of the candidates have asked to come on, and he has said, I don't really want you to come on, right? But Andrew, give you another example of how the woke left is ruining America. So Andrew Yang, Right? Andrew Yang is, according to the Emerson poll, now running fourth, right? He has like 8% in national polls, according to some polls, which is amazing for a dude who's been completely shut out of the media. Andrew Yang had the temerity to appear with me on a Sunday special where he had an hour-long discussion of universal basic income that was completely cordial and interesting and fun and informative. It has millions of views online. He was blasted for the sin of that. Blasted for it. One of the reasons Andrew Yang is popular is because Andrew Yang is willing to have conversations with people who disagree without demonizing them. Meanwhile, you get Pete Buttigieg. Pete Buttigieg has catered to the woke left every step of the way, very early on in the campaign when he first announced. I invited Pete Buttigieg to come on the Sunday special. And his campaign manager said he'd love to come on the Sunday special because at that point he had no attention. And then they got so much blowback that he just ghosted, right? Then it was like, nope, don't exist anymore, not interested in coming on, not even going to respond to emails. Okay, that is not how you build a coalition, obviously. But the Democrats are not interested in building a coalition. The woke Democrats, at least, are not interested in building a coalition. And let's be frank about this. I hate giving advice to Democrats. Let's be frank about this, Democrats. If you are going to force Joe Rogan out of your circle, if you're going to say that Joe Rogan cannot, you cannot tout an endorsement from Joe Rogan because he said some bad things about how men are men and women are women, good luck to you. Good luck to you. You're going to have to win some people like Joe Rogan if you hope to win an election. And you want to push Joe Rogan over to my side of the aisle? Keep doing this kind of stuff. Seriously. You want to push people like Joe Rogan, people like Andrew Yang, over to my side of the aisle? All you have to do is keep being vicious jackasses all the time and dredging up old comments and then suggesting, well, this person is very bad. This is a very bad person. And it's incredible how the media not only go along with this, but facilitate all of this. So Sam Stein, who is a quote-unquote reporter with the Daily Beast, which is to say that he is an activist with the Daily Beast, it's pretty incredible. Sam Stein had an exchange with Glenn Greenwald. Okay, Glenn Greenwald is hardly a person with a sterling record when it comes to controversy, at the very least, right? He's a very controversial figure, Glenn Greenwald. This is a guy who helped Edward Snowden release documents at the behest of the Russian government, allegedly, right? I mean, Glenn Greenwald, I think he does some good work. I think he does some work that I disapprove of. I don't particularly like his point of view at all. I will note here, by the way, that right now he's being prosecuted in Brazil. That's completely inappropriate. I don't see any evidence that he's violated the law in Brazil. Here I am defending somebody I completely disagree with and I think has vicious views on a variety of topics. But Glenn Greenwald, he has an exchange with Sam Stein. Sam Stein's a reporter for the Daily Beast. And Sam Stein starts criticizing Bernie for the Rogan stuff. Right? He tweets out, I totally see the merits in Bernie touting the Joe Rogan endorsement, but I'm also deeply cognizant that I'm not from a community of people that he has attacked and ridiculed, and I have to imagine this is very hard for them. Very hard for them. They're just terrible, terrible. Okay, and then Glenn Greenwald responded, quite appropriately, well, you know, it makes kind of sense that he is touting the endorsement from Rogan, because if you actually want to win a coalition, then one of the things that you're going to have to do is appeal to people who may disagree with you on a variety of other topics. And Sam Stein then responds, so would it be okay to tout an endorsement from Ben Shapiro? Right? I mean, this is how far they've gone. The way that they've gone is, first of all, I would never endorse Bernie Sanders, but the thought experiment goes something like this. If Joe Rogan, who has said bad, mean things, is endorsed by Bernie Sanders, or at least his endorsement is endorsed by Bernie Sanders, that's very bad. Where are you going to stop? Where is the line? Is the line that you're going to say that it's okay to tout an endorsement from Ben Shapiro? Sam Stein, alleged reporter for the Daily Beast. This is what the left wants. What the left wants is to circle the wagons, shut that Overton window so tight that anybody who's outside that Overton window cannot ever be acknowledged as a human being. And to make it so that if somebody endorses you, you have to agree with every one of their views in order for you to accept the endorsement. Now listen, it would be perfectly appropriate if neo-Nazis endorsed Bernie Sanders, for Bernie to say, I don't want their endorsement, right? That's perfectly appropriate. There are certain views that obviously are outside the bounds of, shall we say, the mainstream in American society. Men are men and women are women is not outside the bounds of mainstream in American society. Joe Rogan is the most popular podcaster in America. The fact that the Democrats see fit to go after Bernie Sanders for the great sin of acknowledging that people who disagree on transgender issues might support him, have at it, guys. Really, enjoy. Enjoy. This is the world you want. This is the world you're going to get. And Bernie Sanders will lose running away if he caters to you guys. At some point here, Bernie's actually going to have to stand on his hind legs. It's amazing. For a guy who is considered so courageous, when's the last time he actually stood up on his hind legs and said no to anybody who wasn't a capitalist? It's the only issue where he won't back down is when he's ripping on capitalism. When it comes to the woke left, there's been no point anywhere along the line here where he has just said, nope, this is a bunch of crap. Not one point anywhere along the line. Instead, he just caters and caters and caters. We'll see. I have my doubts that he's going to stick by the Joe Rogan tweet. I have a feeling that he's probably going to back down. Now, maybe he doesn't. He'd be a fool to. He's kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place now. But good luck. Good luck to Bernie Sanders. Meanwhile,